so we can look like, so let's look here. So, so this is my clear job as a scholar. So scholars, like as I'm doing the model, like the first thing I want you to pay attention to is how I would say like how I use place value.
Okay.
To compare the numbers, like because you want them to start in the hundreds place, like that's your first step. So I would say,
should I change that up top or down here or in both places?
Both places, okay. Because like really what their thinking job is actually what they're going to tell you back as a debrief.
Okay. Okay.
So I would say like my first bullet point was scholars. So as I'm working on my model, the first thing I would do. What I want you to pay attention to is, let me see, how I use place value to figure out which number. It says they only need about 3 steps, so I'll type it.
Okay, gotcha.
Type my thoughts. So, yes. Pay attention to. So it says right here, while I'm working, pay special attention to
gotcha.
how I use place value to compare each number on either side of the either side of the symbol. And then so like after that, like they're looking at how you use place value. Then they're looking at like once you've determined that.
Okay. How you figure out the
make
correct
sure
symbol.
how I figure out.
Okay.
And you have that. How do I figure out if the correct symbol is being used?
Okay, gotcha. So drain it down there.
And then like they're figuring out and then, so I guess the last step would be you like how I eliminate answers that I feel like are wrong, and what do I do to answers that I know are right.
Okay, yeah, cool. So how I indicate whether or not an answer is correct, I guess.
Like if you want them to put like a dot, like I used to do like dots and X's.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and like that's all that they need to think about because they can only hold like those 3 things.
Yeah.
Right.
Gotcha.
And so like we can take like this out. And then like as they're debriefing, like you would want them to say in response to those questions. So how did I determine the two numbers? Is what is the question? How did I figure out the 2 correct sets of inequalities? So you figured it out by these 3 steps. You compare the place value by underlining the largest number, and then you looked at the symbol. And I would tell you like I looked at the inequality, and the inequality should have the mouth open to it's the largest number because I forgot what you said about the alligator. Like I should say that, and then the last step is if the inequality was correct, I put a dot by it. If it was incorrect, I put an X by it, and then I looked at my 2 correct answers and I circled them.
Okay, gotcha.
So I should be able to tell you that as a scholar.
Okay, gotcha.
And then you can type that.
Okay, cool.
So do you see, like, how is that different from what you had typed originally?
Mine were, like, I don't know, they were, like, conceptual and a little less germane to the steps themselves. And not, so just, like, less congruous. And this ensures that there are multiple ways in which they're getting the same thing, instead of getting, like, a bunch of different stuff that's, like, trying to get at the same point. It's just the same 3 concrete things, but multiple times.
And they still, like, I feel like they will still understand, like, the concept of understanding, because at first, even though it's, like, still a procedure of, like, underlining, like, they still have to, like, think conceptually, like, which number is larger. And I actually think they understand the concept of, like, larger and smaller number. Like, what they're missing is that they have to really concentrate on the hundreds place first. They just can't, like, look for, like, a random big number and like determine that this number is large. And I think they just needed a way of thinking through that to be able to determine which ones were put.
Support, you can send him to the Fed office. He just came back. I will tell him.
All right. So before we end today, I do want to practice the steps, because I think your highest leverage action step for when you go back to teach this is to make sure that you've given scholars, like, this clear thinking job before you model, and that they're able to, like, debrief. So what we'll do in the practice is you'll set me up for, like, what you're about to model, and you can tell them, like, basically, like, this is a problem that you're going to get better at, or this is something we're going to get better at based on our IA, and, like, this is what I want you to listen to as I model. We won't do the model, like, for the sake of time. Like, I think this is very clear, and you'll be able to, like, model it, and I've seen you model in class, and then, like, you'll debrief me, like, as a scholar. Like, I will answer your questions.
Okay. Cool. Sounds good. Do you mind if I have this pulled up? Okay. Sounds good. Alright, scholars, one of the things we worked on in our math, that we still need to work on based on our math IA data, is comparing 2 numbers. We need to compare. We need to?
Compare.
Excellent. I'm going to be I'm going to show you how I compare 2 numbers. I'm going to give you some steps.
So I will stop. So, like, and we didn't script out this part, but when you're telling them that you're doing it, like, I would say, like, scholars, like, our biggest misconception, or the things that we struggled with the most, was, like, making sure that we started with the largest place value.
Okay, so I can, like, start just sprinkling
you can
that
say
language
that,
down.
and you can see, well, maybe not. Well, you can say, like, the thing we struggle with the most was, like, looking at each number.
Okay,
and you can say that, like, overall, and then like they can see your steps.
Okay, sounds good. We're going to work on comparing 2 numbers, which is something that we do not do a great job on based on our math IA data, but we're going to do much, much better. One of our problems is that we weren't looking at the hundredths place and all the place values. We were not using the place value to compare both numbers, and then we were not making sure that the correct symbol was being used. I'm going to model for you how to make sure that we look at both numbers, use place value to understand, and then make sure that the correct inequality is being used. While I'm working, I want you to be asking yourself, I want you to be thinking, how am I using place value to figure out which number is larger? How am I using place value to figure out which number is larger? What's one question you're going to be asking yourself, Tammy?
How am I using place value to figure out which number is larger?
Excellent. The next question I want you to think about while I'm working is, how do I figure out if the correct symbol is being used? How do I figure out if the correct symbol is being used? What's another question you're answering, Tammy?
How do I figure out if the correct symbol is being used?
Excellent. And the last question is, how do I indicate correct and incorrect answers? How do I indicate correct and incorrect answers? What's the last question you're thinking of, Tammy?
How do I indicate correct and incorrect answers?
Excellent. Watch me. You're going to be looking for how I use place value, look at the inequality, and indicate correct and incorrect answers. Not alone.
And then you pretend, like you just modeled, and then, like, how would you debrief that model with me?
Okay, cool. So I would say, how did I use the place value to figure out which number was larger? Tammy.
You found the larger number by using place value. Like I saw you first, Mr. Constantino, you looked at the hundreds place, and then if those numbers were not the same, you underlined the larger number, and you knew which one was the greater number.
Excellent job. And what did I do if the hundreds place didn't tell me? How did I use place value after that?
You looked at the tens place.
Excellent. And if the tens place didn't tell me, what did I do after that?
You looked at the ones place.
Excellent job. Thank you for telling us how we use place value to figure out which number is larger. And then how did I figure out if the inequality, how did I figure out if the inequality symbol was correct? Tammy?
You looked at the inequality symbol and you knew that it should be eating the bigger number. And if the inequality symbol was eating the bigger number, it was correct. And you put a dot by it. If it was not eating the bigger number, you put an X by it because you knew it was wrong.
Excellent job. And what did I do how did I know that I was done with this entire problem?
Because you had gone through each set of numbers and you had put an X and a dot to indicate whether or not they were correct or not.
Excellent job. And what did I do with the two correct answers?
You circled them so you would have your correct answer circled, so you get all your answers right. You get 100.
Excellent job. I love how Tammy told us about looking at place value, making sure the inequality is eating the bigger number, and making sure our correct answers are circled.
Good. So I think that was really strong. I think what was really strong about it was like at the beginning, like you set them up you communicated belief, like even though they did not do well, they're going to do well because you're going to show them how. And you like cited like in general, like a high level view of like what they did not do well on, and then specifically told them you were going to show them strategies to make sure that they understood that. I think that was strong. I also think the cold calling for the questions was very good. Because you do want to just like ask and make sure that they're like paying attention to what you're saying. I think the steps were short enough. And then even with the first one, when I said like, oh, if I like looked at the hundreds place and it was bigger, like you knew that number was bigger, you still went on to make sure I understood that if they were the same, you still have to look at the tens, you still have to look at the ones, so that they remember. The feedback that I would have for you that would be adjusting is for the debrief. You may want to let them turn to like a shoulder partner.
Okay. Cool.
To talk about what the steps were in the debrief, so that you can kind of hear if they understood. Because if you just cold call, like you only know like a few.
You're right.
But if you let them turn and talk for those really short questions, then you'll know that if they really understood your model, or if there's something you need to clear up.